What's up, guys? It's your boy, the essential John L. Crossfire, aka the real main event, aka the Rogue Soldier, and today you're about to learn firsthand just what it's like to be caught in the crossfire. But above all else, prepare yourself, because in this very moment, today, right now, you are about to be caught in conversation. Hello, one and all, and welcome to episode 57 of Caught in Conversation. As always, I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and I've been quite the busy bee this past week. Been working on a couple of upcoming projects, and I managed to get out of the house. I went to the movies this past Tuesday as I record this. Myself, Mrs. Crossfire, and my awesome sister-in-law, we wanted to go see the new Lightyear movie, but unfortunately, we waited in line for almost an hour, so we ended up going to see Minions: The Rise of Gru instead. We still thoroughly enjoyed it, although by default, it is the weakest film in the franchise, in my opinion, but I'm obviously not the target audience, despite being a massive man-child in my own right. Myself and Mrs. Crossfire also went on a nice little Marvel binge over on Disney+. Upon watching the Multiverse of Madness movie last week, we sat down, we watched the Shang-Chi movie, which we both really enjoyed. The backstory could have been executed a little bit better, does get jumpy in parts, but all in all, still a pretty good film, and we're both looking forward to the sequel when it does eventually come out. Following on from this, we then binged all 6 episodes of the Hawkeye series in one afternoon, which we loved. We both really sad when it finished because we instantly wanted more. Some absolutely fantastic character development in this series, and some of the characters in the later episodes as well, and some of the references as well got us really good. Maybe some will say was just fan service, but honestly I don't see that necessarily being a bad thing. In some ways I was glad that this was a series instead of a movie, because it gave Hawkeye more time, in my opinion, to tell his story than a one-off 2-hour movie kind of could have. And I'm definitely seeing a feature film for Hawkeye coming off the back of this. And I just really want to see one for Hawkeye and the Kate Bishop characters, respectively. They almost got like a kind of Ant-Man and a Wasp kind of vibe to the duo, minus the romance, of course, because that would be a little bit weird. We also watched all the episodes of Moon Knight, which goes from 0 to 100 real quick within the first episode, which had both myself and Mrs. Crossfire on the edge of our seats. It's fairly jumpy in its own right as well. Both Mrs. Crossfire and I, though, can't wait to see more of that. The reveal in the post-credits of the final episode popped me super, super hard. I won't spoil anything for those who are like me and they're a little bit behind on catching up on things, but it was something that I predicted within the first couple of episodes, and I definitely can't wait to see more of that unfold. Moon Knight is one of my favourite characters within the limited knowledge that I have of the actual comic stuff from Marvel that I have seen here and there, and I definitely feel that this character is definitely more tailor-made for a series than a movie in itself, but I can see the character popping up at some point on film in the next phase. But one thing I do love about these Disney Plus specials and movies is that now everything all ties in to the MCU in some type of form or fashion, and people have been complaining that, the superhero genre is kind of, it's lost its steam, or it's lost its steam, or it's become oversaturated, due to Disney. But honestly, I feel like it has been heading that way since around about Iron Man 2, and it still somehow continued to grow and still make more money, and to me, I'm just a fanboy, so the more Marvel content, the better, but not everything is going to be the caliber of an Infinity War or an Endgame, but honestly, if it was, people would still complain anyway, from where I'm sitting, but that's just how it is. We're waiting to watch Miss Marvel. We're going to wait until all the episodes have dropped on that, and we're really looking forward to Thor: Love and Thunder coming up. Hopefully we can get to the theaters to see that one. But I think myself and Mrs. Crossfire, we're in agreement. The thing we're most excited for, both respectively, is the She-Hulk series coming up on Disney Plus, because the actress that is playing She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters, she's honestly one of the best. Jennifer Walters, the character, by the way, not the actress. The actress is Tatiana Maslany. If you guys haven't seen Orphan Black, I highly recommend you do, because Tatiana absolutely kills it. Without spoiling too much from the series, she plays clones of herself in the main character, but they all have severely different looks and personalities. And honestly, there's been a number of times throughout watching the series that I forgot that it was the same person, because I was just so immersed in it. She just does such a fantastic job. And she has been in a couple of well-known things as well. Off the top of my head, she was one of the supporting characters randomly in The Vow. But in the meantime, we're about to start watching the Book of Boba Fett series, and then we're going to finally jump on the Obi-Wan train. Super keen for that, especially some of the stuff, the little snippets that I have seen on social media. The song of the week this week is Monster Made of Memories by Citizen Soldier. I said last week, while I was doing the episode, obviously, that I was going to try and sneak in a few Citizen Soldier songs, because they'd released a couple since the last time I'd had one of their songs as a song of the week. And they've actually just released yet another new song this week as I record this, which is a banger in its own right. Still part of the Fight the Good Fight project. This one, however, is the first release from their Scarecrow album, and it's definitely a banger in its own right, otherwise wouldn't be the song of the week. Boom. But it is Monster Made of Memories, as I said, by Citizen Soldier. Remember, as always, it is okay to not be okay. Fight the good fight. Reach out if you need help. Yada, 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 etc., etc. Over in the wrestling this week, however, just this morning as I record this, Logan Paul has signed a part-time contract with the WWE to compete at a handful of events here and there, mainly the bigger events, because I guess, as much as I hate to admit it, he is a draw. The current rumors are that he'll be facing The Miz at SummerSlam. On one hand, he was impressive in-ring at WrestleMania. On the other hand, he's kind of just proven to be an absolute trash human being. So I really hope that they make The Miz the babyface in this feud, but it seems like they're going to be pushing for Logan to be the face, which is just kind of, Like, I understand, people can learn from their past mistakes, whatever, bloody blah blah, but there's just something about both he and his brother that just makes me shake my head, and no matter what they do, I'm not going to be able to cheer him. But this weekend, as this episode drops, ICW No Holds Barred are holding 4 huge shows that all look amazing, as I've touched on in the past couple of weeks. Australia's Joel Bateman will be featuring pretty heavily on all of those. Not sure if I'll be covering them on the pod, just because it's a lot of content, but I'm super freaking keen to watch all of them. Impact Wrestling are holding their Against All Odds event tomorrow as I record this. It will be today when this episode drops, since I'm dropping this episode a day early, as a preview, so to speak, of Money in the Bank, which will be tomorrow after the episode originally drops, of course. If you're listening after the fact, just disregard that entire rant. But I will be watching Against All Odds with the Impact Ultimate Insider subscription over on YouTube, and I will likely cover the events of that and Money in the Bank, which I'm about to do predictions for, to close this episode. Moving on, though, to the results/highlights of Warrior Wrestling 24, which I watched just a couple of days ago. This event took place just outside the home base of Chicago, Illinois, in my studio apartment. Please don't sue me, Colt Cabana. Match number 1, we had Miranda Alizé, the Lucha Baddie. She defeated Heather Reckless via submission. Pretty solid opener there. Got a bit awkward in the closing moments, but both women absolutely killed it nonetheless. Match number 2, we had Mark Bennett defeating Beastman. Bennett cut a very heartfelt promo after the fact. Match number 3, we got a little bit of Lucha Scramble. We had ASF versus Gringo Loco versus Ninja Mac versus Dragon Bane versus Alpha Wolf versus Golden Dragon, and your winner was Gringo Loco, which popped the ever-loving heck out of me because I'm a big old mark on this Rant and Review and Marking Out podcast. Big old mark for Gringo Loco. He received the Warrior Wrestling Lucha Contenders Medallion for his troubles. Good Lord, that is a mouthful. Meaning that he can cash in at any time, specifically on the Warrior Wrestling Lucha Champion, much like KC Navarro just did with his incarnation of the medallion at the last Warrior Wrestling event, where he became the new Warrior Wrestling Heavyweight Champion. Couple of times in this match where you could kind of see the guys, waiting on their opponents to do the next spot, which is kind of and has unfortunately become somewhat of a norm in professional wrestling, especially modern indie wrestling. But at the end of the day, the fans were into it, and that's the important thing. Everyone looked strong, brother. We had the Warrior Wrestling Homecoming ceremony after this, where we crowned the Homecoming King and Queen. And I don't think we actually ended up finding out who that was, by the way. It was hosted by Denise Salcedo from thefightful.com. Of course, they're a source that I often cite here on the podcast. They're one that I have found to be fairly accurate, 95% of the time. But we are interrupted by Frank the Clown. He comes out in a freaking amazing suit. It was tie-dye, and I really love tie-dye. For those that don't know, everyone that knows me personally knows that there's some underneath this, rock and roll, cross redneck, cross wrestling fan, cross slightly gothic, cross slightly emo guy. There's a bit of a hippie mixed amongst all of that as well. I'm a complex individual, or at least I'd like to think so, but Frank the Clown comes out in a freaking amazing suit, and he hijacks Denise's microphone. How rude, good sir. However, Frank does cut a fantastic promo, calling out pretty much anyone and everyone, and he has a pretty great burn thrown in there as well at the current Lucha Champion, Sam Adonis, regarding Corey Graves and Carmella, which popped me. Of course, Corey Graves, the real-life brother of Sam Adonis, and Carmella Graves' wife, thus makes her the sister-in-law of Adonis. The best part of this whole work-shoot thing was, though, that you could almost tell that, for the most part, things that he was saying were actually true, but that to me, that's always been the mark of a good heel, because as the old expression goes, the truth hurts. It's really that simple. Frank does kind of like a bit of a parody here, almost, of the recent MJF promo over on AEW a few weeks ago, which was such good shit, pal. Frank the Clown calls out Rikishi for the first night of the Warrior Wrestling Stadium Series. Apparently, Rikishi's going to be a special guest at that show. Frank the Clown takes exception at this due to all the reasons that he listed in the promo, where he was taking shots at anyone and everyone. I'm assuming that that's going to end with Frank the Clown most likely taking a stink face at the Stadium Series show, and I'm sure he's going to do that while beaming from the inside out. But anyway, Frank gets some cheap heat at the expense of Denise Salcedo from Fightful.com. Denise slaps Frank before Frank gets in her face. Frank is ran off, however, by Maria Kanellis Bennett, who then comes out to shake the hand, hug, and raise the hand of Denise Salcedo. This blends us into match number 4, which is Davey Richards defeating Tom Lawler after a great mix of technical wrestling and brawling. Both guys showing respect to each other after the fact. Davey does celebrate with Team Ambition, the members of his dojo. That was Tootie Lynn, his student, and then I believe Camaro Jackson and Mike Outlaw, the 2 coaches from his dojo, were there as well. Match number 5, we had Zachary Wentz, Myron Reed, and Dante Leone. They defeated Blake Christian, Frego de Sol, and Nick Wayne. Dante Leone was filling in for Trey Miguel here, which did make me a little bit sad. I was looking forward to seeing Miguel and Wentz have their little reunion, but still enjoyed it nonetheless. Super indie-rific match, but it was what it was. Dante Leone always stepping up. He's always seems to be the go-to replacement, which kind of sucks in a way, but credit to him, he's always finding a way to get himself onto these types of cards. But match number 6, / the main event, we had KC Navarro defeating Brian Pillman Jr. to retain the Warrior Wrestling Championship. Successful in his very first defense of the title here. Really hoping he does get to hold it at least for, 6 months or so. Just because, why not? It's Casey Navarro. I'm a massive mark of him. He has such a bright future. And again, I'm just a massive mark for him. He is truly blessed. Warrior Wrestling is truly blessed to have Casey Navarro as their champion. Brian Pillman Jr. was actually the replacement for Speedball Mike Bailey, who unfortunately could not make it due to travel issues. I guess it is what it is. Card subject to change and all that. Casey Navarro makes it clear that he wasn't happy with the replacement. He cites that Pillman was not a big enough star to be in the ring with him. But then we got a video package to close the show showing highlights from the past 2 Stadium Series shows, hyping up this year's Stadium Series shows, and I'm really looking forward to that, as I've talked about here on the pod. Solid event here, though, for Warrior Wrestling. Only went for about 2.5 hours, and that included all of the ads and stuff as well. So, nice little, almost a house show-esque event here for Warrior Wrestling leading in to the Stadium Series shows. But the first Stadium Series show, not only do we have Rikishi, I guess, I don't know if it's Rikishi versus Frank the Clown, but some sort of interaction between Rikishi and Frank the Clown. We're going to have Athena defending her Warrior Wrestling Women's Championship against former champion in Kylie Ray. I'm sure that that's going to be a really great match in its own right. Really looking forward to that one. The match of the week this week is the men's Money in the Bank match from last year's Money in the Bank in 2021. This was actually one of my favorite Money in the Bank ladder matches in quite some time, as I did document way back when I discussed the highlights of that event on whatever number that was. Can't think of it off the top of my head. But it still pops me going back and watching this, seeing Big E win the whole thing. Although in hindsight, being what it is, it's kind of sad looking at how lackluster his title run after his eventual cash-in ended up being. But we do have good news here, and we are sending positive vibes to Big E here on Caught in Conversation, because he did recently just get to take off his neck brace after what was a very serious and very, very unfortunate injury some months ago. But again, the match of the week this week is the 2021 Men's Money in the Bank ladder match. And now I'm going to close the show with my predictions of Money in the Bank 2022. It's going to be a very short episode this week. My apologies, but hey, this one's actually going out early as opposed to last week's episode going out late. So it's kind of like a yin and yang, balances itself out. At least that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I'm going to do these in the order, as always, that I do, in the order that I book them, seeing as how, there's never a final order for these things, at least publicly, until they're actually happening, which I guess makes sense in a lot of ways. You kind of have the fans speculating what happens next and yada, yada, yada. But as of this recording, they're yet to announce a match for the pre-show, or the kickoff show, as they call it, if there is going to be anyone, that is. But match number 1, the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Lacey Evans versus Raquel Rodriguez, formerly Raquel Gonzalez, versus Alexa Bliss, versus Liv Morgan, versus Shotzi Blackheart, versus Asuka, versus Becky Lynch. Pretty solid lineup. I'm actually really looking forward to this one. It should be a good clash of styles. I'm expecting all of these women to pull out all the punches, pull out all the stops. Out of the bunch, I'd like to see Alexa Bliss win it and get her name back in the title picture. But someone like Shotzi would be awesome to see, and it's someone fresh as well, and I've been a fan of her for years, much like I just mentioned for Casey Navarro. I'm just a massive mark. Would love to see her win, but my official prediction for this is Liv Morgan. She has been breaking out for quite some time, and while I still don't think she's just quite there, she's right on the cusp, in my opinion. And in kayfabe, you've got 12 months to cash in the Money in the Bank briefcase. So I think that's more than plenty time to really put her in that position. I think Liv Morgan wins the Money in the Bank ladder match. Match number 2, Austin Theory versus Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship. Lashley has gotten himself super over in the last few months. Kudos to him for that. But I feel somehow, some way, Austin Theory does retain the United States Championship, even if he does somehow get himself counted out or disqualified, which I hope doesn't happen on pay-per-view for no reason. But I do see Austin Theory versus John Cena at SummerSlam, and I do see the United States Championship being on the line there. Even then, Theory could still retain over Cena by getting himself counted out or disqualified or cheating to win, but I'm getting vibes for some reason. I don't know why, because it's may even seem left field to some, but I feel like when they head over to the UK in a couple of months' time, I feel like it's going to be Austin Theory, or just Theory, I should say. They have to keep forgetting that they dropped his first name. Theory, Lashley, and John Cena in the UK in a triple threat match. Regardless, I do think that Austin Theory does retain here at Money in the Bank against Bobby Lashley. That's my official prediction. Still United States Champion Theory. Match number 3, we have the SmackDown Women's Championship. Ronda Rousey defending the championship against Natalya. I think Ronda Rousey retains the championship, no question there. With all due respect to Natty, I'd love to see Natty get another championship run under her belt, because I'm a big fan of her and everything that she's done for women's wrestling in the last, decade plus. But here we are. Match number 4, Kevin Owens versus Ezekiel. As much as I love KO, I think Ezekiel picks up the win on pay-per-view, or PLE, against Kevin Owens. Match number 5, the WWE Unified Tag Team Championships. The Usos versus the Street Profits. I think the Usos retain here, and this kind of blends more into my fantasy booking, but still slightly predicting. I can see it happen. I think that at SummerSlam this year, I think there's going to be a triple threat TLC match, and I think it's going to be the Usos versus the Street Profits versus the New Day, where the Street Profits finally win the championships, but then the Usos can point out they were never pinned to lose the titles, and the Street Profits' whole thing is that they're yet to pin the Usos, and then I think the Street Profits finally pin the Usos in the UK. But official predictions for this event, Money in the Bank, I think the Usos retain the Tag Team Championships. Match number 6, the Raw Women's Championship, Bianca Belair versus Carmella. I think, simply put, Bianca Belair retains here, with all due respect to Carmella. She was a replacement after Rhea Ripley is unfortunately, she's unable to compete. There's rumors she may have suffered a brain injury due to some sort of concussion. I hope everything's all good with Rhea there. I hope to see her back sooner than later. But I think they're just just chucking this match in as filler before we get an eventual Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley match for the title. Match number 7 / the main event. We have the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre versus Riddle versus Sheamus versus Omos versus Sami Zayn versus to be announced. I'm feeling like the last competitor is going to be named, most likely on SmackDown tomorrow as I record this, or today as it drops. I'm feeling like it's probably going to be Ricochet, just to throw in some high-flying stuff for the match, but it could very well be current Intercontinental Champion Gunther as well, provided that those two aren't added as a last match against each other on the kickoff show. I'd like to see the winner, the official winner of Kevin Owens versus Ezekiel, get put in there as well, because selfishly I'd like to see KO win Money in the Bank. And although I wouldn't see him winning, I could see Ezekiel really shining in a match like this. Of course, if my predictions were go to plan, the prediction for that match would be Ezekiel would be added. But it could even be Happy Corbin or Madcap Moss off the back of their feud. Regardless, though, of who the final man is, there's actually a quite handful of guys that it could be, which is always refreshing to see, because people harp on WWE not building stars. You look at this spot, like even a Kofi Kingston or an Xavier Woods of the New Day, they could even slot into this position here. But I think regardless of who the final man is, my prediction for this match, the winner of this match, I'm thinking it almost has to be Drew McIntyre, and I still think that he cashes in at the UK pay-per-view, whether beforehand as a clean-cut babyface to establish that will be the main event, or if he cashes in whatever the other main event ends up being on that show. Regardless, a lot of people are saying Seth because they're fantasy booking Cody Rhodes returning, winning the Royal Rumble, but I just feel like with Seth Rollins, he still holds over Roman Reigns, that Roman's technically never beaten him. Obviously, house shows / live events aside, He's never beaten him on pay-per-view or, I guess, PLE, Premium Live Event. So could easily goad Roman or whoever the champion is at the time into a match with Mind Games alone. That's Seth Rollins' whole MO in his current incarnation. But I think my official prediction for this show is that Drew McIntyre wins the main event. So my final predictions are, I think Liv Morgan, Theory, Ronda Rousey, Ezekiel, the Usos, Bianca Belair, and Drew McIntyre. But that will actually bring me to a close for this week. As I said, it's another short one this week, my apologies, but at least we're getting it out ahead of schedule. Let me know what your guys' predictions are for Money in the Bank if you are listening to this beforehand, or even hit me up after the event and let me know how right or wrong you were after the fact. As always, I do appreciate your support. I thank you always for that support. Check out the links in the description for all my social media and my merch. There is currently a 20% off sale happening over on Pro Wrestling Tees for the first few days of me dropping this episode, so go check that out. Go check out my store if you have some spare cash. Truly hate to be that guy, but any extra support while I am unfortunately unable to work while I recover from surgery would go a long way. It would be very appreciated. Check out the Masked Wrestlers League in a week from today when the episode drops, if you are in the ACT area or if you have the means to travel, as well as ICW Australia's next event, Insanity, coming up on August 20th. The song of the week this week was Monster Made of Memories by Citizen Soldier. The match of the week this week was 2021 Men's Money in the Bank ladder match. I am the essential John L. Crossfire, and you were just caught in conversation.